Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in today's episode of The Hypnotist, I'm going to be doing another money-related hypnosis session that links into my preparation for an online course that I'm launching soon called Hypnotic Wealth. And I'm working right now live with a volunteer called Rich, who has had certain thoughts or ideas that relate to money being scarce or risk attached to investing money or taking on debt, things like that. And I would say in my experience, the number one pitfall or block for most people when it comes to investing, businesses, anything like that, really is this idea of fear of loss, of losing what you have, and that there is some kind of consequence to taking a risk beyond the actual financial loss. So for some people, it's the idea of shame or embarrassment or failure and other things that kind of taint the water. But where this whole element of fear comes from is an idea that money is scarce, that money doesn't grow on trees. Because actually, if you have an abundant mindset, then what tends to happen is that you look at losses as a learning feedback, because you say, well, there's plenty of money to go around. So even if I lose a bit now, the lessons I learned from that loss is going to equip me to make way more in the future. So this hypnosis session is really going to tap into the abundance of money, how money is actually created. And it's different now to how it used to be. There was a time when money was linked to something called the gold standard, and that money had to be backed by an equivalent value in gold or other precious metals, depending on the country that the money was produced from. But back in the 70s, there was a disconnect between money and the value denoted from that. And effectively at that point, money was just said it had value because government said it had value. And then what happened is the banking system could lend way more than they had in their reserves. And the central finance houses, so in England, it's Bank of England, at certain key times could print more money, called quantitative easing. And at that point, there is way more money than there has ever been. So when people say money doesn't grow on trees, you're right, it kind of grows on computer files because governments just decide, hey, there's more money. And guess what? There is more money. So there has never been more proof and evidence in society that money is abundant and, in huge supply than right now. And this hypnosis session is going to be working with Rich, the volunteer, effectively to change a few belief systems. Because if you believe that money is scarce, it's going to make you fearful when you need to be courageous. And that can really get in the way of people making the choices that can then lead to more money and more income streams. So if you're listening to this right now, find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy the session. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow that tension to leave your body. That's right, taking you deeper and deeper, relaxed. That's it. And with your eyes closed, it becomes easier to imagine. Free of the distractions from the real world, your imagination gets to go on a journey. And this journey can go backwards and forwards in time. And I want you to imagine you are in a room with a large, futuristic machine. I want you to see all that technology. And I want you to use the power of your imagination to imagine that this machine is a time machine. And if you can imagine what this machine would look like, sound like, and even imagine touching it so you could imagine what it would feel like, just let me know by nodding your head. That's right. But before we go in the time machine, I want you to imagine that there is a very comfortable chair right next to the time machine. Maybe a reclined chair. It looks like the most relaxing chair that you've ever seen. And I want you to imagine getting on that chair, allowing your body to sink into that chair, feeling the weight of your hands and arms beside you, continuing to breathe in and breathe out, allowing you to go deeper and deeper, relaxed. That's right. And very soon I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and you will imagine falling asleep in that chair, going deeper and deeper relaxed. 10, eyelids getting heavier and heavier, muscles relaxing in your forehead and cheeks. That's right. 9, finding it easier to breathe deeper and exhale even deeper. 8, shoulders, neck, loosening, feeling like any tension is just melting away. 7, muscles in your arm, forearm, fingers, loosen, relax, let go of any tension. Now, that's it. 6, feeling like as you breathe deeper, your chest, your lungs relax. Now, 5, deeper and deeper relaxed. That's it. Gut relaxes. Diaphragm relaxes. That's it. 4, going into your legs now. That's it. 3, all the way down to your toes. And imagine what it would be like to fall asleep in this chair. 2 and 1 now. That's it. Deeper and deeper asleep. And while you're sleeping, you can do what we all do. As your physical body relaxes, your imagination becomes more alert. And I want you to get a sense of what it would be like for your physical body to stay in that chair as your imagination goes into the time machine. And I want you to remember, before you go into the time machine, the very first time that you had any concept of money being scarce, in short supply, perhaps even the first time that you heard that money doesn't grow on trees, that money shouldn't be wasted. And if you can recall a memory like that, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. Stand in front of the time machine and I'll count down from 5 to 1, and you will imagine going through the time machine, returning to that memory as an adult, seeing that childlike version of you. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, going into the time machine now. And there you are. Back in your past, perhaps a childhood home, maybe a school. You're back there in the past, at your current age. You will be invisible. Nobody can know that you're there, but you are there. And perhaps you're seeing yourself as a child just a few years old, maybe overhearing conversations, arguments. It occurs to you that this is the time that you as a child were building up beliefs, constructs, concepts about what money is. And you can see that young, impressionable face soaking up all this information, accepting that opinions are truths, that words are real. And I want you to see that child almost like that blank canvas of their mind is building up a reality of money, of wealth, of possibility and opportunity based on the words that they hear then. And then it makes sense. I want you to then think, while you're looking at this child, of how the words that they heard as a child influence future decisions that you made between then and now. Choices that could have been different if you had a different blueprint back then as a child. And I want you to think about the reality of money. A few thousand years ago, money was bartering. People changing and exchanging goods and services only with those people that needed those goods and services. The total money supply in the world was zero. And then, in some cultures they used shells, in other cultures precious metals, that became an exchange of value. The money supply in the entire world back then, still zero. And then something happened as civilizations were built. They started taking those precious metals and melting them down, forging them into coins. And back then, the money supply started to be created. To begin with, just a few thousand coins, and then a few thousand more coins. Different coins, different societies. And as civilizations got bigger, the amount of those coins produced increased. And then I want you to go forward to more modern times, where it wasn't just coins, but it was banknotes printed, and the money supply increased and increased. And I want you to get a sense that just in the last 100 years, the amount of money produced has been growing exponentially. That banks can lend way more money than they have in savings. That central governments can just decide to print more money. And in more recent times, technology has meant that coins that have value can just be created because code says that they have value and scarcity. I want you to get a sense that there are trillions and trillions of value in money that a few thousand years didn't exist. And therefore, all money has simply been created, manufactured. Money is an idea. And those that are open-minded to the idea tend to have more money than those that still treat it like those shells and precious metals. And if your unconscious mind accepts that money is a concept and that money can be created, I want you to think of just one company, perhaps Amazon or Apple or Microsoft, a teenager coming up with an idea in their garage. And then perhaps 20 or 30 years later, that same company that was created inside their mind becomes worth more than $1 trillion. So that all parts of your subconscious mind have evidence that money is created and built and grows. And when all parts of your unconscious mind accept this to be absolutely true, let me know by nodding your head. That's right, because there was a time when there was no money, and now there is more money than there has ever been. And in the future there will be even more. And then find yourself back in that childhood home or place where you see yourself as a child and realize that this child doesn't have this viewpoint, this perspective. And I want you to imagine that you meet this version of you, this younger child, perhaps in a garden or a bedroom, somewhere where you can have a private conversation. And I want you to imagine that you're explaining to this young, impressionable version of you the reality of money. That it can be created, it can grow. That in previous generations, it was difficult to acquire wealth within your own lifetime that wasn't inherited, but now things are different. That anyone could be as wealthy as they want to be, proportionate to their ambition, their ideas, and the value they create for the world. And I want you to have that conversation with the younger version of you until they share your belief that money is infinite. And when that childlike version of you accepts that money is infinite and that opportunity is infinite, let me know by nodding your head. As this young, impressionable mind starts building new beliefs about money, about possibility, I want you to also tell this child that hard work is just one way that money can be created and is the least efficient. You explain to this child version of you that the way that money works is that there is an exchange of value, and that most people perceive that the exchange of value is that you trade your time for other people's money. And while that is true, and what most people would call a job, it is simply one of many ways in which money can be created. I want you to imagine that you're about to take this child on an adventure through time. But I want you to imagine, first of all, before you go into the time machine into their future, imagine that you have maybe £1,000. And back then, recall what year it was. And I want you to imagine that you're buying something, an asset, for just £1,000 back then. Maybe stock in a company, some shares, or maybe something else. then imagine yourself and that younger version of you going forward in time to 2008. And there you are in 2008. And I want you to imagine that whatever you invested that £1,000 in back when you were a child, it has grown significantly since then, without any hard work whatsoever, just a choice, an allocation of resources now that could return a bigger amount in the future. And maybe that's grown to 5,000 or 10,000 or even more. But I want you to imagine that you're giving this younger version of you a lesson. However much you have then, having grown that £1,000 into something bigger, I want you to imagine in 2008, you're finding a place where you can buy something new that you've heard of called Bitcoin. You don't know what it is or how it works. You've just heard about this thing. And I want you, through whichever way necessary, to imagine taking this increased amount that you have to invest and buying as many coins as you can with whatever you have. And when you've done that, just imagine that you have whatever login details or security that you need to access this in the future secured in a safe place. And when you have, let me know by nodding your head. And then I want you to imagine, again, going into that time machine and going forward to 2021, at the very point where Bitcoin has now reached the value of $60,000 per coin. Only you will know how many coins you could have purchased when they were just a few dollars each. And now they are worth $60,000 each. And I want you to explain the principle to this childlike version of you that is following you on this investment adventure. That money can grow in value. That assets can appreciate in value. And you may decide to take some of that money out of that portfolio and invest in other things like property, land, whatever it might be. Because the purpose here is not to predict the future, but to give evidence to yourself and your younger self that hard work is simply one way of creating wealth. But sometimes making choices as to which assets to buy can give a higher return than just trading time for money. And I want you to compare investing in something to what happens in nature. I want you to think about nature now. How one seed can turn into a tree, and then that tree can produce thousands of seeds. And each seed could grow into a new tree and produce thousands and thousands more trees. And I want you to get a sense of compounding or exponential returns, that it exists already in nature, and that it is possible that this can happen, rather than looking at money as a scarce resource. What if you treat it like seeds that could be planted and can grow to create even more seeds in the future? And then I want you to go to one final destination. I want you to imagine going towards your retirement. Both of you, The current version of you and the childlike version of you now will visit your future when you're 60 years old. And just imagine that the changes in beliefs and ideas about money have had a ripple effect throughout your life. Whatever needed to change, changed. Perhaps you got the balance slightly altered so that you were comfortable with risk, but not reckless with risk. You were willing to invest, but only with what you were willing to lose. And in doing so, you have accumulated more wealth. Imagine that you are also sensible with your income to reduce your tax, meaning there was more left with you. I want you to get a sense that this has all happened over many, many years, and now you are seeing that future version of you, perhaps 60 years old, living a life of freedom. See that version of you. Perhaps in a convertible, driving down a highway, maybe somewhere in the Midwest, with views of mountains in the background. Get a sense of freedom, opportunity, the time to spend time with those that matter most. That you no longer have to trade your time for money because you don't need other people's money. I want you to get a sense that all this is possible because money is infinite, and you are unlocking the very resources necessary to create more value for others and to leverage the money that you have acquired. Like planting seeds to grow more seeds in the future. See yourself living the future that you want. See it growing. See it moving. It gets bigger and bigger, more exciting, more compelling. That's right. This is the life that you deserve, and this is the life that you are attracting to you. And then get a sense that all of this is possible when you allow the possibilities to flow to you, when you change your attitude to risk so that you make choices that are discerning That's right. This is a desirable future, a compelling future. And it's one that's heading your way. And now, imagine that you and your child, like version of you, are going back to your past. That child that had beliefs and perceptions about money, now fundamentally changed. They believe that wealth and opportunity is not just possible but inevitable. And imagine that that had a ripple effect throughout your childhood, teenage years, into your adult years, completely changing how you think about things. I want you to say goodbye to that childlike version of you. Give them a hug and tell them that they will learn more from their losses than their wins, and they have the resources and the resilience to get through anything. And then say goodbye and find yourself back in that room with that time machine, seeing someone just like you, sat in a chair, fast asleep. Climb into that version of you, So your conscious and unconscious are now synchronized. And then realize this is all just a thought within a thought, an idea within an idea, a dream within a dream, and that actually you are firmly in the present, listening to my voice right now. And in a few moments' time, I will count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. You will awaken feeling resourceful, optimistic, feeling that there is an abundance of money and opportunity in the world, and that you are unlocking the discernment to make great choices, to leverage your time, your efforts, to have the life that you deserve. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.